Well, here we go. Everything you need to know about 1984, Part 2, Chapter 4. So this chapter opens with Winston in the room above Mr. Charrington's shop, right? He has actually rented it out to meet with Julia, which he keeps reminding himself is suicidal stupidity. When he talked with Charrington about it, though, Charrington responded with something about the importance of privacy and mentions the house having two entrances for coming and going. So as Winston waits for Julia, he notices a large, older prole woman doing laundry, and she's singing this popular tune that was actually created by a machine that turns out catchy but trashy tunes for the party, for the proles to be entertained by. So Winston was too tempted by the idea of having a hiding place that he couldn't pass it up. He thinks again that this was so foolish to do this, but they had not been able to get together for weeks, so he was desperate. Hate Week was coming, so everyone was working more hours than ever. They were going to meet in the woods again, but she called it off as she was on her period. When she told him, Winston found himself really mad, but then he thinks that, if he could live in a normal world where they could be married and together, that every part of life would seem normal. This is when he gets the idea to rent the room, and Julia agrees. They both know that such a step does bring them closer to death and being discovered. Finally, she shows up in the room with a tool bag in her hand. She pulls away from his embrace and tells him to dump out the cruddy coffee that he was making. She had brought real sugar, real bread, jam, milk, and real coffee that they don't get to experience as party members. Well, outer party members. She tells him it's all inner party stuff that they don't deny themselves, but their waiters and servants often get their hands on it. She also has real tea, which is unheard of. She then tells him to turn around, so he watches the laundry woman who is still singing. He is startled to think that a party member would be caught singing alone. That just wouldn't happen. It would be wrong and possibly criminal. He turns around when he's told to, and Julia had put on makeup and perfume. He notices how pretty and feminine she looks. They get busy, and then they fall asleep. He wakes up first and thinks that surely there was a time when just leisurely laying around would seem normal. It's just not anymore. When she wakes up at sunset around 9, and while talking, she yells and throws a shoe at the corner, saying that she had seen a rat. While Winston freaks out a little, Julia goes on to say that, rats are everywhere and they even attack children. Winston can't stand for her to continue this conversation. He has this anxiety attack, partially remembered something in the past that terrified him. He hates rats. She tries to comfort him and promises to bring something to patch up the wall so the rat can't get in. She starts the coffee, and while she enjoys some jam and bread, she walks around the room looking at things like the glass paperweight and the picture of the church. He says the first part of the nursery rhyme about the churches, and then he's surprised that she can finish it. So she heard it from her grandfather, but at that point she had no idea, or at this point in time anyway, she has no idea what a lemon is, which is actually mentioned in the rhyme. Julia thinks the picture probably has bugs behind it and thinks that she'll clean behind it at some point. Winston doesn't get up yet, but rolls over and looks at the paperweight, imagining that held in the glass is this room that they're in, and his and Julia's life is like the bright coral inside. So what should we get out of this chapter? Well, there's a couple of interesting things of note. For one, we see a picture of what is as close to what we would think of as a domestic scene. In Charrington's room, Winston and Julia almost experience what could be called a home life. A picture that just doesn't exist anymore in the world of the party, which is why the paperweight becomes like a symbol of the old world, like time captured in a bubble. In fact, a couple being happily together is a death sentence. What once existed before the revolution is now extinct. There's also some criticism and insight to any socialist or communist regime, especially in how these systems are supposed to level the playing field. Everything belongs to everybody, that no one is supposed to be privileged or above anybody else. But the inner party always lives better and always has luxuries that are unheard of and unavailable to the common person. As we've seen happen time and again in communist and totalitarian governments, a select few live without restraint and they're separate from the majority of the population. They basically enjoy riches and wealth and luxury that no one else gets to. This is also a great chapter to revisit as you further get into the book, because there's some near misses here and some clues to the things that are going to happen later in the novel. The picture on the wall and the rat are some items to pay attention to in the coming chapters. So hopefully that was helpful. Questions, comments can go in the down below. Would love to hear from you. Otherwise, we'll see you for the next chapter.